Welcome to Professor Skye's Spam channel, where I discuss anything that is not new music. So as you can tell from the title, I'm being provocative. I'm sort of dipping into YouTube drama, but I'm going to be doing it from my usual smarty pants perspective. I'm going to be providing a half-hearted non-defense of James Somerton. As a way of having a highfalutin preface, I want to talk about a kind of silly idea that always bounces around in the back of my head, the Mount Everest. So it's particularly popular in sports discourse, American sports discourse. Who are the top 4 people in any field? The top 4, I don't know, hockey players. So Gordie Howe and Wayne Gretzky and Ray Bourque and Stevie Hines, right? Like, who are the top 4 in any field? And it's a silly, stupid thing to argue, but I can't help it. I love silly, stupid arguments. And when I think about YouTube video essayists, I have 3 that are just an absolute lock. I think FT Signifier, Lindsay Ellis, and ContraPoints are just inarguably etched up there on that mountain. But who's the 4th? Now, what's interesting is 2 people who I've had in my head as potential 4th heads are at the center of this drama, of this controversy. Not even a drama or a controversy, of this event. James Somerton himself and HBomberGuy, the person who just released a video which completely annihilates James Somerton's credibility and shows him to be an unrepentant plagiarist. Now, the thing about HBomberGuy and why he belongs on that Mount Everest is he is one of those creators who, and I'm sure I'm not alone, when you see he has a new video, it is a stop everything moment. It is a hold my calls, cancel my classes, whatever else I was watching is going to go in the queue and I have to watch this right now. It was like a 3.5 hour, 4 hour video. I didn't care. I didn't watch anything about any of the movies or music or video games or sports or current events. I don't know. Okay, like I wasn't doing anything but watching this. And what makes him so great is very clear. It's, okay, his editing's great and he's funny. That really helps. But really, he does a lot of great research. He knows how to present complicated ideas in a way that's agreeable and enjoyable. He's very, very, very funny. And he has a, that sort of it factor, the kind of personality where you relate to him and you like him. A side note. I've had this dream. He once mentioned that he wanted to make a video defending the prequels, the Star Wars prequels. And this is something I've been working on for, no joke, 20 years. So my dream has always been that I would contribute to that video before I even had a YouTube channel. I have all these great ideas about how Episode 2 is really about the difference between wisdom and knowledge, and how Lucas's drive to fight biological determinism is why Yoda had such a weird exit in Revenge of the Sith. That's like my little YouTuber fantasy. But anyways, when we think about HBomberGuy and the work that he's done, everything he does is so good and everything is so important. And that's why when I was watching this last video, in the beginning I was initially not super excited. I liked it, it was well made, but ironically enough, it felt copied from other stuff. Or at least it was not copying, that's a big term. It was continuing the work that other people did. It was rephrasing the work that other people did. I had already heard a lot of discussion of the plagiarism case against that video gamer, Philip. I'd definitely seen a lot of stuff about the Illuminati, especially by, who's that? There's that weird Turkey Tom. It's like a guy who does I can't tell if he's good or bad. I can't tell if he's secretly sort of super right-wing conservative or not. I can't tell, but some of his work is interesting, some of it's not. I found his work on James Rolfe, the Angry Video Game Nerd, in that video to be interesting because in reality, there's already a definitive video about the problems with Angry Video Game Nerd. That's made by Lady Emily. And that's just one of just the best descriptions of what happened to one of the greatest YouTubers of all time. Somebody who definitely belongs up on the Mount Rushmore of video game YouTubers with Sterling and Dunkey and I don't know, that other guy who became a fascist. It's okay, it's fine. The video's going along, and the bit on the Internet Historian is super well explained and shown, and I have a love-hate relationship with the Internet Historian. I really enjoy watching their stuff, but their political bias, which is not the same as my political bias, pops up enough that it bums me out that I don't particularly love it. So I'm sort of watching all this, and I'm enjoying it. None of it's bad, right? But it's not quite that HBomberGuy level of video. To the point where I was wondering, is this a thought experiment? Is he actually secretly plagiarizing to see if we're noticing? There's one piece of evidence right before the twist in the video, which I'll discuss. He says, I've shown about the dangers of plagiarism, bada, 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 and all the ways it can result in destructive results. Now, he had just trained us in the video to pay attention to bad writing as a sign of someone trying to rewrite something sloppily so that it can get around, so it can make some kind of credible claim that it's not plagiarism. All the ways it can result in destructive results, it was as though he was telling us directly, hey, I might be plagiarizing. So I had this whole secondary imagination of where, like somewhere hidden in the description, he says, I actually plagiarized all this and wanted to see if you could note. I don't think that actually happened. And then he had the twist. And there are moments that you remember in culture, right? You remember certain moments in culture. You remember especially shocks and surprises. I was watching this video, and when he said the video was actually about James Somerton, I legitimately said out loud by myself in my room, oh no, because I was completely shocked. I was completely floored. Now, I've been watching James Somerton's content for his videos. I guess they're content now. I don't know. His work, the work. I've watched the videos that he makes for the last couple years. And the most interesting part to me is I have a colleague. And I have a colleague who is much like me, has a doctorate, works in this department. And he is like a real deal scholar, especially on issues of masculinity, but also a lot about queer studies. And I've just been like trying to get him to understand all this great work that's happening on YouTube, all of this great, well-made scholarship. Because the thing, I'm an academic, right? And it sucks. It sucks being an academic. You don't feel like anyone's ever listening to you. You have to be at the top. Being an academic is like being a soccer player in the 3rd division. Okay? It's like, yeah, you're technically living a life of the mind, but you're not going to be Foucault. You're not going to be Barthes. You're not going to be Jordan goddamn Peterson. You're just going to be some guy sitting in his office, right? So that's part of the reason why I did this YouTube channel, or I did do my YouTube work, is because I believe that it's a place to do real scholarship. And most important, it is a place to popularize scholarship. And even most importantly, it is a place to communicate ideas which I believe are at the highest level, okay? I have read many books. My library smells of rich mahogany, and I can tell you, YouTube video essays, when they are well done, are as good as anything. Take, for example, ContraPoint's work on J.K. Rowling. Take FD Signifier's work on Kanye, Lindsay Ellis's work on The Hobbit, HBomberGuy's work on Sherlock. Like, these pieces of criticism, of analysis, or whatever you have, cannot be done better. And they're being done in such a way that they're being shared and enjoyed by millions of people, which is doing the thing that a life of the mind should do. A life of the mind should be able to actually touch people and change their lives. It should not be hidden in books. It should not be hidden in conferences. It should be shared. And James Somerton was proof of concept to me that this can exist. Now, there's no such thing as a super popular French critical analysis YouTuber who has hundreds of thousands of viewers, okay? PhilosophyTube comes close with a lot of philosophy talk. I think PhilosophyTube does a great example of how far you can go down that path of how actually informative can you get, the balance between information and entertainment. I think they perhaps do it the best in terms of having it weighted more towards information. But really, that's why I loved James Somerton, because the work that he was doing, I've done a lot of queer studies as well, a lot of gay studies. You know, it's when you get a doctorate in humanities, like you interact with all this stuff, right? I mean, I didn't specialize in it, but I have a lot of experience with it. And so I found out about this, and I went to the office next door, a couple doors down. Where's he next door? Yeah, he's next door. Sorry, I forgot. And I said to him, "Oh yeah, so I want to tell you, I'm sorry, but remember that guy I was telling you was doing all those great YouTube reviews? He's like, yeah. You didn't watch any of those videos? No. I don't think he watch. I don't think he doesn't. I think he doesn't want to watch them because it's too painful. The idea that his ideas can't get out. I don't know, or maybe he doesn't care about YouTube. Whatever reason it is, he never watched them. And I said, well, don't watch them. It turns out he's just a complete plagiarist. I mean, he took the celluloid closet and just re-edited it and made it into a shorter version. And he did all this work where he just completely ripped people off, and then he pretended not to know, and then he acknowledged it. And I just said, oh, it's just terrible. And my colleague, who was literally working, I think, on some paper on maybe Rock Hudson. I don't know. He does a lot of work with the star system in the 50s. It's interesting. He's sitting there, and he's like, I wish somebody would plagiarize me. And that's my half-hearted defense of James Somerton. I wish somebody would steal my ideas and make them heard. Is it better to be trapped in a book that no one will read? Or is it better that someone steals your ideas and shares them? I'm not speaking fancifully here, okay? This is papers on French 17th century literature, okay? Edited by Rainier Zazer, okay? Big name in the field. And if you go to page 49, there I am, there I am. Vaugelas's pleasant mixture. This was years of research and work that I did on this French 17th century language former philosopher, commentator. This whole book, he opens it up and saying, there's no order to this book, so just read it. And I figured out that there is some order, and I talked about it, pages and pages and pages, and I read all of the scholarship on Vaugelas, everyone who's ever written about Vaugelas, and I spent hours in the library, and I spent hours writing, and I spent days and weeks and months editing and finishing it up and making it perfect and submitting it and sitting there and waiting and crossing my fingers and hoping to God that it would come through, hoping to God I would get an approval. And I got it approved, and it was published, and thanks to this I got tenure, so that's great. But this is the reality of a life of an academic. It's not a coincidence that many of the best YouTubers, including I think everybody who I put on my Mount Rushmore, dropped out of grad school studies. Because they see where it goes. It goes here. Trapped and locked in this information. I mean, this is a great article. This is great. This is some of my best work. But if you told me, Skye, someone just made $2,000 sharing your information about Vaugelas on YouTube, I would take it. I would take it in a heartbeat. And that's not to defend James Somerton, because what he did is wrong and bad, and he deserves all the criticism that he gets. The issue is, the scholarship that he was stealing was actually important. Now listen, it's important in a sort of grand scheme of things, my observations on 17th century French conception of language and how usage varies from sort of pragmatic dogmatism with language rules, all that stuff. That's fine, that's important, but that's not, I'll be honest, that's not really important. Okay, the video I released on my main channel about RX Nephew and RX Poppy is way more important than this ever will be. But James Somerton was talking about very important things. He was copying very great work that did not have that audience. He wasn't telling lies. The only lie that he told was that he came up with any of the stuff he was talking about. He was encouraging, promoting a top level discourse on queer issues. He was encouraging activism and humanity. Everything was stolen, but everything was good. Let's compare that to everyone else in the video. What would happen if Illuminati never stole those videos? Nothing. Illuminati contributes nothing. Zero to the civilization. Zero. Absolutely nothing when she steals the Fire Festival thing. It doesn't matter at all that you know about the Fire Festival. Same thing with the Philip guy. Oh, is it a YouTube? Is it a review of a video game that copied? the actual content of that is meaningless. The AVGN example, the James Rolfe example, is fascinating because HBomberGuy does a great job. I know he has a real name, but I don't know him personally, so I'm going to call him HBomberGuy. I know he likes to call people by their real first names when he's doing videos, but I don't want to do that. So Mr. Guy, his attack on AVGN is more pointed at the fact that the dip of quality of his videos resulted in this plagiarism, so that his real crime is not caring about his videos enough to catch this. Because if he had produced his own thoughts on these horror movies, what would have been there would have been way more interesting. He wasn't stealing because he couldn't do something. He was stealing because he couldn't be bothered to hire people who were, or to be surrounded by people who wouldn't tell him to do something as stupid as stealing a review of a movie that no one cares about. So, that's my half-hearted defense of James Somerton. I'm glad that he's caught, but I'm also glad that he existed. I'm glad that he forwarded very important research. I hope that the vacuum that is left behind him is filled with other creators, queer or not queer, who discuss these issues, right? We need to stop pretending like you need to be a part of a group to discuss a group at all, okay? That's a break, that's a wall which will stop discourse. Now, of course, you have to be a part of a group to meaningfully discuss the experience of that group, but you don't have to be a member of a group to meaningfully discuss how a group is treated in society or in culture. We're all part of a society and culture. So that's my hope. My hope is that thanks to his plagiarism, masculinity and queer studies on YouTube are much richer. And now that he's out, people can jump in and fill the void. HBomberGuy correctly references another YouTuber, Matt Bohm, who, I want to be honest with you, I have sent, I think, 5 videos of Matt Bohm to my colleague. It's always been clear that he is a much more serious intellect, a much better scholar, even than the people that James Somerton was robbing, okay? They both have 277,000 subscribers as of this recording. In particular, if you've never seen Matt Bohm's analysis on the movie Rope, I think one thing HBomberGuy didn't do is illustrate how to best quote people, because Matt Bohm does a lot of research and integrates the quotes and doesn't plagiarize and does it in such a way where you get that feeling that this great synthesis of all this information, all this great learning. So I suggest, if you are like me and you were hurt, like actually hurt, I was actually hurt when I found out about that. I found James Somerton's personality to be a little off-putting. It wasn't surprising to me that he wasn't a nice guy, but I thought of him as a serious scholar and not just a thief. But in his thievery, he did become a great communicator of important thoughts. All right, there's my little video. What do you think? Are you mad at me? Who do you put at the fourth Mount Everest of YouTuber video essayists? Okay, there's the camera.